Okay, hey everybody. So 182 class today. I'm going to do a review, a little setup here. Try to have you duplicate this at home. So we're going to talk a little bit about DOF, which is depth of field. Kind of hard to write. Depth of field. Now, depth of field simply refers to, here's your camera, and this is, space, and here is your subject, coffee cup today, right? So we just want to look at, so we have a black coffee cup, a white coffee cup, that's mine, so we won't include that one, and a blue, so black, white, and blue. I don't have a black pen, so we call this one black, this one white, or actually do that back one blue, right? Okay. So there are 3 coffee cups. 1, 2, 3. So what depth of field really is the light is focused onto the sensor of the camera, not the front of the lens, the sensor. And what we want to look at is how much of this is in focus. Do we have everything in focus from coffee cup number 1 to coffee cup number 3? Or do we have just a portion of this in focus? So do we just have coffee cup 1, that amount in focus, right? Or do we have, say, coffee cup 1 to 2 in focus? So it really gets to be an exercise in how much, right? We have a little bit, we call that shallow or short depth of field, okay? Very popular for doing portraits because you have the subject in sharp focus, your person, portrait, and then you have nothing in the background in focus, kind of a blurry, dreamy looking background. And that's called short or shallow depth of field, right? So that would be like the orange scenario right here. We just have 1 in focus and nothing else, okay? So that's very handy because we can essentially eliminate some of these distractions that are in the background because they're distractions and we don't like them. So we can eliminate them by making them a bit blurrier. So how do we do that? Where's my rag here? How do we do that? Okay, well we do that a number of different ways, or a number of different ways to control that. But there are 3 main components to controlling depth of field, or how much is in focus. Remember, a little bit in focus, so only just this coffee cup, would be short or shallow depth of field. If all 3 were in focus, or if I had a bigger studio and maybe 5 feet behind me here was in focus, that would be what we call broad or deep depth of field, that everything is in focus. Okay, so how do we accomplish that? Well, there are 3 main components to depth of field. F-stop is 1, right? So if we take a picture using a big aperture, say f4.0, versus a small aperture, say f22, well, there's going to be a dramatic difference or a significant difference in how much of the picture is in focus. If we use a big aperture, big opening, like f4, then we're going to have a lot less depth of field, right? So we might say that f4 would be less and f22 would be more, right? More depth of field, okay? So your first thought is going to be you want to use as big an aperture as you can get to have short or shallow depth of field. Okay, now some of your cameras will only go to f3.5 or f4, so you can see why it might be desirable to have a lens that would go to f2.8 or f2 or f1.4. That's highly desirable. It's expensive, but it's highly desirable. Your next thing is millimeter of lens. If you want less depth of field, you want a big lens. Like say if you have an 18 to 55, you want to use that lens at 55 millimeters. You want to zoom in, right? Because the more you zoom in, the more depth of field shrinks and gets smaller. If you want more depth of field, you're going to want to zoom out and use like 18 millimeters. So the wide angle view, right, gives you more depth of field. Okay? Now, this is all degrees. It's not like a hard line. It's all incremental. It's all a little bit at a time, one way or another. Okay? All right. And the last one, how good this pen works, is camera to subject. Distance. Okay? If you want less depth of field, you have to get close. Okay? If you want more depth of field, get further away. Okay? So I'm going to try this, see if it'll work here on camera. I haven't done this experiment yet. Here, this might work. Let me try this. So if I get this in really close, the camera is going to focus on it. Come on, focus up. It hasn't focused on it yet. It hasn't picked it out yet. The autofocus hasn't picked this up yet, so it won't do it. Yeah. That's not happy with me. It's trying to pick me up in the background. There, it picks me up. Now if I put this in front of it, there it goes. Now you can see that bottle is very sharp, and you see my whiteboard is getting blurry. Now watch when I sit down and the autofocus is going to pick up my face. Ready? Now this is sharp and everything back here is sharp. And if I were to hold that up closer and let it not pick it out but still stay on my face, you can see that's very blurry. So it has to do with where you focus the lens as well. So depth of field is kind of controlled by three major components with an additional side component. F-stop, millimeter of lens, and camera to subject distance. But as we just demonstrated, where you focus the lens is going to determine what is the sharpest element in that frame. So picking a focus point is really important. Okay? So autofocus can be good, autofocus can be bad, because where is the camera picking up the focus point? So if I can get it to copy that. There it goes. See, it's picking up the bottle. Right? If I move the bottle away, now it's picking up me. Okay? So where the camera is focused is critical. So the one thing that gets to be problematic is where you have your lens focused. I put these batteries on charger, and this one's doesn't have a battery in it, so I have to get a battery. So hang on a second, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I had to go grab my camera because the other batteries were dead. So when we talk about focus points, right, you can have automatic selection, which is what I have set up on the camera right now. Hang on, let me get it back. See, it has automatic selection, so all of those dots are activated. Okay? Now, that's okay, but what if I have a specific item or a specific spot that I want to focus on, right? I need to go to a manual setup, so I have to punch that button. It's in the upper right-hand corner on Canons. Far button over. And then I have to use my wheel and adjust it. Now I've adjusted this so that I have the center element. Come on, there it goes, focus up. See, I have the center item focus. Come on, camera. There it goes. See, as opposed to automatic. So now when I go to pick out a subject, the front coffee cup, I'll aim the camera at that, hold the button halfway down. Let's tilt down a little bit so you can see. I'll aim the camera at that black coffee cup, hold the button halfway down so it achieves a focus lock. Then I have to move the camera over so that I get all 3 coffee cups in the picture, and then take that picture. If I wanted the white coffee cup, I would aim the camera over at the white coffee cup, hold the button halfway down. You can hear it beep maybe, it achieves a focus lock. Then move back so the black coffee cup is in the picture, then take the picture. If I wanted the blue coffee cup to be in the picture, I would aim the center of the lens at the blue coffee cup, and then move the camera so that all 3 coffee cups are in the picture. That's called picking your point of focus. Okay? And it's really important. So this is going to be a really simple idea for you to do at home is, on the kitchen counter or on the, dining room table or wherever you eat, get 3 or 4 or 5 items and put them in a row. Now space them out so that there's room in between, like I have here. They're not perfectly in a line, okay? Move them over a little bit so you have some room in between them. And what I want you to do is practice focusing on one. Say we have 4 things here, right? Is focus on one, get the biggest aperture you can get, f4, f5, something like that. Zoom in a little bit, and practice just getting one of those in focus, then the other, then the other, then the other. So let's take 3 or 4 pictures where only one thing is sharp and in focus. Okay? Then let's try the opposite, where we're going to zoom out a little bit. We're going to go to like f16, f22. Now if you do that, and not much light coming in, right? So you're going to have to open up the shutter or the time so you get more light in, okay? If you're confused about that, go to my YouTube channel and watch the videos on more light, less light, and what is a stop and equivalent exposure, okay? So what I want you to do is think about that idea of depth of field. I want one thing in focus, then I want a couple of things in focus. So we're going to practice that. So I don't know, give me 4 or 5 pictures, 6 pictures, something like that, where you've got just this in focus, just that in focus, just that in focus, or that in focus. You guys have a little bit more room than I do in my little studio here to do this. And practice trying to get just one element in focus, shallow depth of field. Then try to do the opposite, where you get more depth of field and you have more of the elements in focus, 3 or 4 or 5 of them all in focus, okay? All right, cool. Give that a try, see how that goes. Hopefully we can get back together here in a couple of weeks and meet in class. I don't know, things are moving quickly, so hopefully that will happen. I will let you know as soon as I know, you'll know. Okay, I'm still hopeful for like the first week in February that we can get back together for a face-to-face part of this class and do a bunch of stuff in the classroom. And I'll turn you loose for another month or something like that. Okay, all right, cool. See you. Bye.